Hello there, welcome to part 10 of my Clone Wars analysis series. In today's video, we'll be examining Lair of Grievous, Season 1, Episode 10. The goal of this series is to unpack the Clone Wars animated show and look closely at its themes, characters, and politics. As always, there will be spoilers as we're covering the entire episode and series. That said, let's jump into it. Lair of Grievous follows Bombad Jedi and Cloak of Darkness. It's a narrative story arc, but with very different characters, as this episode follows Kit Fisto and Grievous instead of Padme and Jar Jar, or Luminar and Ahsoka like the previous episodes. The key link between these stories is Newt Gunray, who is captured by Padme and then promptly freed by Ventress. Gunray escaped aboard a Republic ship so it can be tracked, but Dooku and the Separatists know this and use the tracking to punish Grievous by sending the tracking signal and consequently the Jedi into Grievous's own home. This punishment is a testing grounds for the droid general, as with his many failures in Season 1, Dooku and Sidious have to hold him accountable and prove his worth. The quote for the episode is "Most powerful is he who controls his own power," which is basically a statement of self-control and thematically correlates to the episode as we follow Kit Fisto and Nadar, his former apprentice, who have different approaches to power and what it means to be a good Jedi. As the episode starts, Kit Fisto is tracking the Republic ship and completely intends on recapturing Gunray. The Jedi have absolutely no idea that they're going to Grievous's lair. As far as they know, there is no trap, and they're just on Gunray's trail. Luminar and Ahsoka tell Fisto that his old apprentice Nadar is already on the surface, and their appearance in this episode connects to the last one where they were the main characters. Kit Fisto meets Nadar, and based on their dialogue, they haven't seen each other in a while. Fisto says, "I'm sorry the war prevented me from seeing your training through to the end." Evidently, they shared a closer master-apprentice relationship before, but because of the Clone War outbreak, the Jedi aren't able to be as close as before. Instead of training and doing traditional duties, the Jedi are now generals in the war. As Mace Windu said, and Ahsoka reiterates, the Jedi are keepers of the peace, not soldiers, but the war is transforming that image. Even though it's a relatively small detail, not being able to see your apprentice's Jedi trial, one of the most important and traditional aspects of the Jedi Order, shows that the Clone Wars is distancing the Jedi away from their roots, and this is demonstrated more throughout the episode in Nadar's characterization. Presumably with the same logic on how I view Anakin, Nadar was made a Jedi Knight in the start of the Clone War so there can be more generals to lead the clones. One of the clones wants to thermal detonate the entrance to the lair, and Nadar wants to lightsaber his way through the door, but Kit Fisto says, "Patience, the both of you. A second look usually pays off." Kit Fisto is demonstrating openness, as instead of going with the direct response of violence, he's open to exploring other ways inside the lair. He's also demonstrating awareness, as he spots and uses a simple button to open the door. The others are so focused on the mission and used to violence that the war has brought, that blasting a door open has become their standard, when simply walking in like a peacekeeper is Kit Fisto's way and the traditional way of the Jedi. Inside the lair, suspense builds up. The lair is dark, clones need to activate their flashlights, they smell things that aren't droids, and Kit Fisto senses that something is here. Then the episode shifts back towards Gunray, which was the original plot point, with his voice being heard, and he sounds afraid because he doesn't want to be captured again. His chair is surrounded by guards, battle droids, which Fisto and Nadar dispatch, but Nadar is a bit too aggressive with the Force. Kit Fisto is a bit concerned about Nadar's aggression and says, "I didn't forget to teach you restraint, my old Padawan." Nadar says he got carried away, to which Fisto responds, "Those who have power should restrain themselves from using it." Kit Fisto's quote goes back to the door to the lair. Just because they could have sabered down the door or blasted it open doesn't mean they had to when they could have simply used the door. When compared to a Sith like Palpatine who only cares about power and wants to use it, Fisto emphasizes a Jedi way of putting one's power to the side of their character. Nadar is characterized as a bit aggressive, as he turns Gunray's chair around with the Force instead of Fisto doing it. It is here where the episode shifts away from Gunray and focuses now on Grievous. Gunray is simply a hologram in the chair, and worked with Dooku to use the Republic tracking signal to set a trap for the General. Dooku appears to the Jedi as a hologram and says, "Allow me to offer an alternative prize." Dooku is setting up Grievous by sending the Jedi to his lair. If we look back at Season 1, then Lair of Grievous is very much a climactic moment of the story. There's a lot of tension between Dooku and Grievous during the Malevolence arc, and when the Dreadnought is destroyed and Grievous turns off Dooku's hologram, Grievous is outright defying his boss. Evil characters in Star Wars rule through control. Sidious controls Vader by lying to him to control him, and punishing him when he steps out of line. It's the same with many other characters, and in Cloak of Darkness we saw that Ventress had to prove her worth to Dooku because her failures were adding up. In Season 1, Grievous has many failures. The Malevolence is the most notable, but then you have Rookies, where he failed to invade Kamino, and then Duel of the Droids, where he lost a separatist listening station to the Republic. So far, Grievous is the main antagonist of the show, and the greater story has led to this moment. Like Ventress, Grievous will have to prove his worth to Dooku. Grievous is unaware of the Jedi in his lair, and as he comes home, Dooku contacts him, telling him that the stalemate of the war is unacceptable, and that Sidious wants more dead Jedi. Grievous is a parallel to Vader as being more machine than man, as Obi-Wan puts it, but his parallel is that he's also being manipulated and tested by Sidious. While walking through the lair, some of the doors open with glimpses into Grievous's past. Kit Fisto says, "This place looks like a shrine to that strange warrior. You see the trophies of Jedi that Grievous has collected." And Nadar poses a great question, which is, are we the bait, or is Grievous the bait? Dooku wins either way. If Grievous kills the 2 Jedi, that's 2 dead Jedi and Fisto is on the council, and if they kill Grievous, then it just proves that Sidious's idea that Grievous is unworthy to lead the Separatists. The mission for Fisto's group is to capture Grievous, because that could change the tide of the war. Fisto says, don't underestimate him, which matches the theme of Cloak of Darkness, in which one's own overconfidence can give the enemy an advantage. Fisto says this because they think they have an advantage, as Grievous doesn't know that they are there. Fisto's warning is accurate, as because it is indeed Grievous's lair, Grievous has the home field advantage. Nadar says, "Don't make me destroy you," during the encounter with Grievous. This is a major red flag for a Jedi, showing the audience that his power is getting to his head. Darth Vader says the exact same line in Empire Strikes Back to Luke, which is probably one of the most famous scenes in all of Star Wars, thus making it one of the most famous lines. Nadar is being directly paralleled with Vader, and thus Anakin, and is a symbol of what the Jedi are becoming in the Clone War. Anakin's turn to the dark side isn't an outlier. While he was the most extreme example, many Jedi lost their way during the war, and Nadar demonstrates that as power gets to his head. After Grievous gets away, Nadar says, "The clones got in the way, I could have taken him," which is another red flag. He's asserting blame onto others. A Jedi is supposed to be selfless, help others, and recognize their own flaws and take responsibility for their actions. Nadar is being selfish, not taking responsibility for losing Grievous, and is blaming it on the clones. Nadar isn't on Krell level of hating clones, but he is not using their names and is treating them more like expendable objects. All Kit Fisto has to say to this is, "Let's take care of our wounded," which is the selfless foil to Nadar. By saying, "Let me go after Grievous myself, Master," Nadar is showing his impatience and overconfidence yet again. Kit Fisto has to tell him that he isn't able to fight Grievous himself, very much like how Ahsoka had to tell Luminara that she couldn't fight Ventress alone in the last episode. Ego is getting to the heads of the Jedi during the Clone War. Grievous gets repaired by his droid doctor, and they have a discussion about his mechanical body. The droid mentions that Grievous submitted to the changes of his mech, but Grievous gets an attitude over that wording and says he submits to no one. By the tone of his voice, he's frustrated because his words are a lie. If this episode is anything to indicate, he submits to Dooku and Sidious because he has to. He serves them, plays their war for them, and is expendable. His lair had statues to his warrior past, but he's very much not that same warrior anymore, in the same way that Vader is not Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan first tells Luke that Anakin was a cunning warrior, and later tells him that he was more machine than man, and these same descriptions are applicable to the droid general. After the fight with Gore, Grievous' sort of pet thing, Nadar shows more frustration after the loss of his clone leader. Grievous is going to pay for this. "I will destroy him," he says. His focus on destroying matches his earlier statement and is completely covered in dark side emotion and intent. Kit Fisto is more balanced of a Jedi, saying that Nadar's pain over the loss is completely understandable, but that revenge is not the Jedi way. Instead of acknowledging that he's wrong, Nadar says that strength prevails in the Clone War. Presumably he's been in a few battles and lost many men, and that anger and loss plus the war itself has transitioned him away from a peacekeeper into a soldier who values power over compassion. Nadar tells his old master, "The rules have changed." Kit Fisto responds with, "Perhaps you are the one who has changed," which is one of my favorite quotes in the entirety of the show and all of Star Wars, as it truly demonstrates the effects of the Clone Wars on the Jedi. Kit Fisto shows that while the war is a struggle for everyone, you don't have to let it define you or change your morals. Nadar is in denial, saying that the circumstances of the war excuse bad behavior and destructive mindsets. Like Anakin, Nadar is being changed by the war. It's not necessarily their fault, as they are victims to the war like everyone else, but Jedi like Kit Fisto and Obi-Wan Kenobi are not fazed by the war, and remain pure of heart, showing that it is indeed possible. Nadar's overconfidence gets him separated from Kit Fisto, and he has to fight Grievous alone. Grievous kills the Jedi Knight by shooting him with a blaster from his third hand after his prior 2 lightsabers lock Nadar in place. This is most definitely an unhonorable kill. As we see in Grievous' intrigue, Grievous has some honor when he fights Jedi, as he doesn't use his Magna Guards to intervene with Koth until Koth uses the Force. This is because Grievous can't use the Force, and if the Jedi make a fight unfair, then he will make a fight unfair. So Grievous has some baseline honor to his character, but I also think that there's a degree to which he has lost some of it from his warrior past. Most definitely, the specific circumstance of the Jedi being in his home and Dooku setting him up made Grievous want to kill the Jedi at any cost. With or without the blaster, Nadar would have lost as he was simply too confident and aggressive. Grievous takes Nadar's lightsaber as a trophy. Kit Fisto and Grievous duel outside for a final time, and Fisto says what I've been emphasizing in this video. He says, "You may have been a proud warrior once, but now you're just a pawn in Dooku's game." Symbolically, Kit Fisto knocks off Grievous' robotic hand and takes back Nadar's lightsaber, which avenges his Padawan's death and redeems his flaws a bit. After the encounter, Grievous reports to Dooku and has to acknowledge that despite killing Nadar, Fisto escaped, to which Dooku says, "So there is room for improvement," which is hilarious as it's very condescending and typical of Dooku and makes Grievous upset. Grievous is a pretty angry character, and is rightfully so if he's being manipulated by Dooku and Sidious to lead a war and doesn't get any thanks out of it. Overall, Lair of Grievous is pretty interesting because later on when Dooku is in trouble thanks to Mother Talzin and the Night Sisters, Grievous helps Dooku without question, demonstrating that he's wrapped very tightly around Dooku and Sidious's finger due to the toxic manipulation and his testing of worth. At the end, when Fisto reports to Yoda and Mace, Yoda sums up the point of the episode with, "In this war, a danger there is of losing who we are." Star Wars is primarily Anakin's story, and what's great about the Clone Wars is that it shows Anakin was not alone in losing his way. He fell very far due to Palpatine's manipulation and the flaws of the Jedi Order, but when you look at the war overall, the Jedi way is highly at risk as is. The Jedi become soldiers instead of peacekeepers like Mace says, and their way of life and tradition doesn't belong in the war environment. Nadar lost his way and is representative of the Jedi Order as a whole, straying away from their purpose and leaning more towards Palpatine's lust for power and chaos.